Okay, got one good to go. Now I'm waiting on Benjamin. Make sure he's good to go. Okay, here we go. Well, hey everybody, welcome to SEO Week at iThemes. I have my good friend Rebecca Gill on the webinar for 4 days of great SEO training. Now, Rebecca and I have known each other for several years now, but for the last, I would say, 4 to 5 months, we've been specifically working together for our SEO at iThemes.com. Now, Rebecca's got a firm called Web Savvy Marketing. We'll give you some links to that in the chat room over at iThemesChat.com, and also we'll tell you how to follow her on Twitter. But when I went back and asked some very dear friends that I trust, who should I talk to about SEO, Rebecca's name was the only one given. Said you have to go to her, and I'll tell you what. In my experience, it's been nothing but awesome. What she's doing with us at iThemes.com for our own SEO efforts are going to make a substantial difference in the future growth of our business. I've told her several times how much she's helping us grow the business. We know the little seeds of work that we're planting now will be reaping in the future. She is the expert, and I love how her approach to it. It's very real, practical, non-glitzy. It is just, here's the things that I've found and experienced to work with SEO. Now, let me just confess to you that when I went to Rebecca and we started working together, she probably a couple times slapped me on the wrist and said, "Bad Cory," because my knowledge of SEO was probably 8 years old by the time her and I started working together here at iThemes, along with Kristen and other people on our team. And my knowledge was way out of date, and there was a lot of things that had to be corrected. And to be honest with you, I can't believe I'm even saying this, but I have to, is that I had let that in our priority around SEO kind of fall down the spectrum a little bit. But it is one of the key reasons we're able to grow year to year. We're all about content, but we just did not have our strategies aligned. So walking with her training us, doing the little wrist slaps, right, Rebecca? A couple times you get to rule her out, and shame on you, kind of thing. Our efforts now are starting to get aligned, and I know the future is great for what we're doing here at iThemes in regards to SEO. So anyway, I want to go ahead and turn it over to Rebecca and let you share her experience and expertise about SEO. I hope you're ready to take notes, and most importantly, ready to implement the things that she's going to share with you over the next 3 days. So be sure you're signed up and ready to go. It's all blocked out on your calendar to be here, because you're not going to want to miss a moment of this training. So Rebecca, thank you so much for being here today, and I'll turn the reins over to you.
Thanks so much, Cory, and everyone who's out listening. I just want to thank you so much for joining me and Cory today. It's going to be a good week, and I really hope that you get a lot out of this week. And as Cory said, with the chat room open, we would love to receive your feedback. We'd love to receive your questions, your thoughts on SEO, because whatever you give back to us, we can push back to you in some good knowledge and education. So if I were to ask you, any of you, what is the first word that comes to your mind when you think of SEO? Things that I would think of would be confusing, frustrating, scary. Those are three that came to my head right away. And I can pretty much imagine that most everybody in the audience has some semblance of the same type of feeling. Icky could be some people's experience with it if they've worked with an SEO consultant who has been less than above board, because there's a lot of people out there who do black hat SEO, or even just they think that they know a lot of about SEO, but they don't. And this week I want to kind of take as much of that away as I can. I want to take away the ick factor. I want to take away the scariness of it, the frustration, and the confusion. And I just really want to walk you through my philosophy of SEO and what I've been putting into practice for over a decade. And just a little bit of background on me with SEO, just so you have a semblance of where my history comes from and where my knowledge comes from. I've been working with SEO for over a decade. I started when I was the head of marketing at an enterprise software company, well over 10 years ago, and I'm self-taught. We needed more leads to do sales and to grow the company, and so I did as much research as I could on my own through the search engines. I played with our website. I had side websites that I could do some SEO testing on. And it's been a lot of education and trial and error to get to where I am today, and I still do some trial and error to really prove out what I thought worked yesterday and to make sure it still works today. So, the education that I'm giving you, the things that we're going to talk about, please know that this isn't something that I just read in a blog post that I'm just whipping out in a webinar for you. It is things that I've learned through my own trial and error and through my own work and through my own success with SEO. And I have had a lot of real-world SEO experience and success, down to working on websites that competed against really big websites like SAP, Oracle, and Microsoft. And the tactics I use to win against those websites are the ones we're going to go through today. And they're not scary, they're not frustrating. It's just, like Cory said, it's just a common sense approach to SEO, and that's what I want to give to you and help you build some good building blocks. I know that there's a lot of talk in recent years about SEO being dead and it not being relevant anymore, and that's a bunch of crap. I'm going to say it right now because it really frustrates me every time I see it on the internet or see it on Twitter or a blog post. SEO isn't dead. It's very much alive. It's very much influential in internet marketing, making sure that you can position your website and get it at the top of search engines, both Google and Bing, to make sure that you're relevant and that you're findable. And that's what we want to talk through. SEO is different in 2015 than it was in 2014 or a decade ago when I started. Things I used to be able to do a decade ago, I can't do as much today, but no, the process is still the same, right? So there's a little bit of nuances that change every year, and algorithms shift, and Google and Bing get more savvy with the way that they do things, but in the reality of it, it's still the same process. And I'm going to take you through that process, but that whole process comes back to one little secret. And it's one simple concept that I've stayed with for over a decade and that I keep using today as I compete against other internet marketing companies and other SEO consultants. My secret sauce is simply this. I try to think like Google. And I'm going to use Google as my reference today, and even though it still applies to Bing and any other smaller search engine out there, I'm going to continue to use Google because Google has the predominance of market share within search. And because that they are so forthcoming with education and information to try to get us to do the right thing, right? Google wants us to do good, and they really want you to excel at SEO because it makes their job easier, as a pool of staff. And the more you try to think like Google and the more you try to keep yourself focused on what Google needs and Google wants, the more successful you're going to be in SEO. And that may seem very, very simplistic, but when you think of it in those terms, it takes all of the scariness and the frustration away. And let's talk about a few of the things that's important to the search engine. So first and foremost, don't ever forget that Google's ultimate goal is to make revenue, right? Is to generate revenue. That is their goal, and everything that they do is going to be surrounded on that premise. How do they make revenue? Well, they bring in revenue through pay-per-click ads. Pay-per-click ads are the search engine results that you see at the very top of the screen or on the right-hand side, right? Sometimes at the bottom. That's where their money comes. They also have some ancillary ads that they can put on other websites, but for today's purpose, we're going to talk about their revenue through search. While they grow their revenue and their profits through pay-per-click, they cannot have pay-per-click unless they have quality search results in organic searches for any word under the sun, right? They have to make sure that what's within organic search is of high quality, because if it wasn't, you, a searcher, would never come use it. The regular average Joe who's looking for the local pizza place or the pharmacy or something at a national level, they're not going to come to Google and they're not going to utilize Google unless organic is of quality. So even though Google obtains revenue from pay-per-click, that organic is critical to them because that's what keeps people coming back to them and using them and setting their homepage and their computer to them. That's what's important. And it's really broken down to three elements. The first one is good content. Good content is web pages and blog posts and products and videos and images, right? So it's the content itself is a core component. Happy users is the next one. Happy users being you and me and everybody who uses the Google search engine to type in a word and to get some results back and use that to find something on a website somewhere or multiple websites. Happy users with paid ads as well. They have very strict rules with paid ads, and while we aren't talking about that today, know that they're just as stringent as that as they are organic search. And then the last one is controlled ranking. So ranking being when you put in a search term into the box and you wait for results to come back, where do you land? Are you on page 1 of results, towards the top, towards the bottom, or are you on page 100? So having that ranking controlled and making sure that their policies and their programmable data that they produce is all of quality. That's their core components of their business model. And when you keep that in mind, and whenever you have to ask yourself anything in regards to SEO, and you come back to knowing that's the core components of Google, it will help keep you on track. I promise you that I did a presentation at WordCamp Ann Arbor a couple of months ago, and I did an SEO lunch. And every time a question came up, I would look at the person who asked that question and say to them, answer this for me. What would be best for the user? And every time they gave me their answer of what would be best for the user, it was also what was good for SEO. When you focus on what matters to Google and knowing that a positive user experience is important, and you use that in your decision tree on whether or not you should do something for SEO, it will bring you back very, very solid results and will make sure it's keeping you on track. It's when you try to shortcut that philosophy that you get yourself in trouble. We want to definitely keep you out of trouble. SEO isn't voodoo, it's not magic. It's got a process that goes along with it, and when you look at that process and you focus on what Google really wants and needs, you're going to keep yourself in the safe land of progression forward and working yourself towards landing on page 1. So let's look at the things that Google really wants and needs. We looked at the components of their revenue process and what matters to them. Let's look at what they need. First and foremost, they need some quality search results, right? You have to make sure that what is getting displayed in the search results is of high quality. You, as a website owner or a blog owner, you influence that every time you write a piece of content. Whether your content itself is of quality or that meta description that you put into your SEO plugin like Yoast or All-in-One SEO. That makes a difference. That little meta description is the first thing that a user is going to see before they even click through to your website. It's going to give them a decision on whether they want to click through or not, or whether they're going to ignore what you're doing. And we'll talk about that this week. Meta matters, right? It matters to the users and it matters to Google. Their next thing that's really important to Google is having a clear path to relevant content. This is a stumbling block for everybody. It was a stumbling block for iThemes that we're working through, and we've been working through for a couple of months. Google needs webmasters and bloggers to create a clear path, right? And I'm saying that again because it's really, really important. They need you, or search engines, Bing and Google, need you to tell them very easily, very quickly, and very concisely what piece of content is the most relevant content for a given search phrase or keyword. This is a major area where everybody falls down. There's a lot of people who are doing SEO, whether it be full-time or part-time, or not even realizing they're doing it all, they're just writing content. But they don't have a strategy, they don't have a keyword strategy and a map of what their website or blog should be. And when I say a map, it's a decision factor to say, okay, for the phrase WordPress themes, for example, what page or post or product on my website is the most relevant piece of content for that? Making a decision to say, yes, this is where I want to send the search engines for this phrase. If you can't answer that for yourself and you don't have that well documented for yourself and part of your strategy and part of your process, the search engines can't use that either, right? So if they don't know where to send content, they're not going to, they don't know where to send users to content, they're not going to do it. And tomorrow, excuse me, on Wednesday, we are going to go through keyword mapping and keyword research, and it's really, really important. It's going to be a great day. This is number 2, and it's extremely of value. It's where we start our process. So the next item that's super important is high quality content, right? Writing for the user and not writing for the search engines is critical to the process. Do we optimize for content? Yes, we absolutely do optimize content for search engines, but you don't want to write that way. If you don't make the user happy, you're not going to make the search engines happy. The search engines want users to come to the results or come to the search box, put in a keyword, get results back, click through those results and find their answer and be happy with their answer. If you don't have quality content, you break down that process. The more you make your users happy that come to your website or your blog and read your content, the happier you make the search engines, the more you are going to be recorded. Where we fall down is when you start to try to write content or try to cheat the system and you forget the user and the user experience. And that's my last item is the positive user experience. You have to make sure that at the end of the day, everything you do comes back to that decision tree of if it's good for the user. And if it is, it will reward you. Okay, when you don't rank in the search engines, your immediate response, or most people's immediate response, is to blame the search engines, is to be frustrated with Google for their changes in the algorithm or the knowledge that you don't know and the things that are all inhibiting you from being successful. But that's the wrong approach. Google's not purposely out to get you to not rank. Google wants you to rank because the better you are at SEO and the better you do with the website creation and your blog creation, the happier their users are going to be. So don't blame Google if you're not successful, because that's not the path. What you have to do instead is to say, okay, what did I do wrong? Let me figure out what I did wrong, and now let me put in a plan to make sure that I'm doing that right moving forward. All right, so we're going to start with things to avoid, because this is the best way to kind of identify with people, what's going wrong, because then we can turn that around and teach you how to do it right, right? So there are certain things that Google does not like. There's certain things that Google has published in writing to tell webmasters and bloggers that they don't like, and here's the top ones, right? So first of all, what does Google not like? It doesn't like lack of keyword focus. If you fail to create a plan for keywords and you fail to map out your website with some good keyword strategy and focus, it's frustrating to your users, it's frustrating to the search engines. Think about it this way. If you've ever gone to a website looking for something, whether it be a product or a topic, and you get there and you still can't find that information, right? Because you've been sent to a page that's not right, or a product that's not what you were looking for, you are immediately frustrated. The search engines would be frustrated, because it's not creating that positive experience. Lack of keyword focus is by far one of the biggest issues people have with websites, but it's one of the easiest things to fix, right? We're going to talk about it on Wednesday. It is an easy fix. It's just a matter of getting you to think differently and to get you pushing yourself into that process. The next thing search engines hate is crappy content. But guess what? The users hate that too. How frustrated are you when you do a search on Bing or Google and you get to a page or a post that has 2 paragraphs? You're highly frustrated. Or you do a search for whatever ailment you have and WebMD comes up, and so does 5 other websites that have copied the data from WebMD, and nothing that you're seeing on page 1 is unique. That's very frustrating. And because that's very frustrating, thin content, duplicate content, or poorly written content all distracts from the user experience, and it all hampers your efforts with SEO. Another issue is stagnant websites. Cory said at the beginning of this talk that he thought that potentially you could just create stuff and just let it ride. His knowledge of SEO was 8 years ago. Stagnant websites and old content and old data is frustrating to the search engines because it's frustrating to users. I have data with my own Google Analytics to show the influence of if I blog or I don't blog, or I create fresh content or don't, and how drastically that can shift our results and our traffic from organic search. And when I say drastically, it can shift us about a third with traffic. You know, having fresh content on your website and having new information that's relevant and that's timely is extremely important to users and extremely important to search engines. You can't create a website and think it's just going to be good and it's going to last for 5 years, and that information that you wrote on a service page 4 years ago still stands and it's still relevant, it's still going to rank. It won't do that. The older your page gets, the less important it becomes to users and search engines alike. Okay, the next one is one of my personal pet peeves, and it's link juice. How many out there in the chat room, I want to hear it, how many people think link juice is important? How many people try to get link juice? And how many people could care less about link juice? Totally. If you care less about link juice, thank you. Don't use that term. If you read a blog post that's talking about link juice, most likely it is old and it's dated. And here's why. You know, linking and using inbound links to your website used to be really, really important. And 5 years ago, you could significantly manipulate search engines' results by making sure that your website had 2,000 or 20,000 links coming into a given page or your website as a whole. Those days are done. You no longer can safely, and I'm using the word safely with emphasis, you can no longer safely chase inbound links to your website because the search engines have put in so many protocols and safety checks to stop the black hat SEO practices and the manipulation of those links. You know, so those are going lower and lower in the algorithm, and the people that chase link juice are really walking down a dangerous slope. Don't do it. Focus on other factors like quality content and freshness, because that's going to really make a better impact. If a prospective SEO client comes to me and mentions link juice in their initial email or conversation, I won't take them on as a client. And the reason I won't take them on as a client is because I know their view of SEO is dated and they're going to be a challenge, and I'm not going to be able to get them over that idea because somewhere they've read a blog post 5 years ago that link juice is critical, and they're going to chase that juice. And what happens is you do a practice or you do something that's not allowed by the search engines and you get penalized, and it's just not worth it these days. There's other safer methods to work on SEO, and those are the ones that you should focus on. Okay, so the next one is poor design and code, right? And we do get a lot of requests for SEO audits, and that's one of the first things that I look at, and I will give feedback to users about design and code. And while that's not what they're thinking that they're going to get with their audit, they are going to get that from me, and it's because it makes such a difference. It is very difficult to successfully work on a website and have good results with SEO if the code in the background is poor, right? It degrades performance, it degrades the user experience. It's an upward battle, and I encourage people to fix their code and to fix the interface and the design before they start spending money on SEO. It's because it has such a critical factor, and it's many times overlooked. And when I say poor code, I mean your theme does not even have an H1 tag. And I tweeted about that last week because I found yet another website for a mid-range company that was the case. And I know it's hard for you to know whether or not your theme or your website has good code, but just remember this: when you go to buy a new WordPress theme, make sure it's from a quality provider. If you're having someone custom build you one, make sure that developer is solid and they have a good reputation, because if they code it poorly, it is going to affect your overall SEO. Performance is the last one, and this is a newer one. The more you can have a focus on performance and speed on both desktop and mobile, the better off you're going to be with your website. I have worked on websites before with SEO that were on really poor hosting and with a really bloated theme from Theme Forest, and I hate to say that, but it's true. It is really hard to make them successful. And until we got rid of the theme and until we got better hosting, I could not make progress with SEO because that poor performance and that lack of speed was really degrading the user experience and degrading our efforts with SEO. Okay, so one thing to remember is that SEO doesn't require an army. If you are on our webinar and you work at a company and you have a team, that's great. Utilize your team to help in your SEO efforts. If you are a single employee company, or you are a WordPress developer and you're all by yourself, you're a freelancer, please keep in mind that you can make a difference. You can have a successful journey with SEO. When I beat Microsoft and SAP and Oracle, I was the only one working on SAP for our company. Or excuse me, I was the only one working on SEO for our company. It was just me, right? And not only was I all by myself and I had limited time and limited resources available to me, I was teaching myself SEO along the way. So if I can do it, you can do it, right? Anybody can be good at SEO. You just have to get yourself into the right mindset, and you have to get the right education. And the fact that you're here today is a great example of you trying to be educated and you trying to move forward your SEO efforts. And as you learn today and you learn the rest of the week, keep that in mind. If there's anything that I'm saying that seems overwhelming or that you can't do it, you can do it. You just need to be able to chunk it up into bite-sized pieces and implement what you can when you can, and then move forward to the next set of tasks on your list. Real SEO success, and this is the basis of everything I do besides thinking like Google, is the fact that I have a strategy and I plan and I execute. And then once I execute, I turn around and I come back and I follow up after a little bit of time has passed. It is really the strategy and planning that people miss, and it's the follow-up that degrades everybody's SEO efforts, right? They get very caught up with the on-page and the content and the action of publish, which publish is extremely important, but they forget the strategy and the planning. And if you stop yourself and you force yourself to go back and start with strategy and start with planning, you'll realize that you'll feel much more confident in the steps that you're doing, and you're going to have a lot more success. As we've been working with iThemes, and as much as Cory and I want to jump in and start making changes, and so does his team, I've been pulling them back and saying, no, we can't do this, right? We have to make sure that we've got a good strategy in place, and we've got to make sure that what we're doing is planned out, and it's going to be calculated, and it's going to be the process, the right process. Okay, so this is the slide that is the most important. If you take nothing away, take away this slide. If you need to screen print this or screen capture this slide, do this. The slide, my presentation will be available through SlideShare today as soon as we get off this webinar, and you'll get it from the iThemes team. But this is the one I want you to come back to, and this is the one I want you to reference from here on out for the next 6 months, right? It's this slide. Here's why this is important. This is my formula. When I sat and talked to Cory the first time about SEO, and his eyes started to glaze over like everybody's do, I said, no, don't look at me like that. It's 10 steps. It's 10 steps that we go through, and while these 10 steps can take months to plan and execute, it is just 10 steps, right? It's a process. So at the very beginning of my process is keyword research. And now look at the text underneath that. It's my first step. It's audit my own website, right? Start going through my website and start documenting what I've currently been focused on or what I think I've been focused on. It's looking at keywords that I'm seeing within Google Search Console and Google Analytics. It's reviewing competitors, and when I say review, I go down to their source code to see what they're doing, and I look at external reports. Tomorrow, we are talking about free tools, and that's all about number one. Number one, if you have no idea how to research keywords and that number one step feels overwhelming to you, don't let it be. Join us tomorrow, because we're going to walk through that tomorrow, and I'm going to show you all the free tools I use, and you don't have to pay for a bunch of money. You don't have to pay a bunch of money to have reports every month. You just need to use my free tools and follow my same process. So we audit the website, we look at competitors, and we start compiling a list of seed keywords. Keywords could be anything that you think someone could potentially search for to bring them to you and convert into a lead, a phone call, a sale, whatever that download, whatever that may be. All of those keywords. And notice there's not specifics. I'm not calling anything specifics, because at this point you're brainstorming. You're just trying to figure out what those might be. And once I have a list of seed keywords, again, anything, products, services, blog posts, it could be any of that related content for the search. Then I start looking for search volumes, right? Because I need some data to help validate which keywords are potentially better than others. That's my step number one. And that process isn't an hour-long process. I had a SEO consulting call last week, and the gentleman said, okay, well, I just want you to go spend an hour and go do some keyword research for me. And I had to stop him to say, no, that's not an hour's process. If it only takes you an hour to do keyword research, you're doing it wrong. Keyword research is going to take multiple hours, and I generally break it up across multiple days because it gets you can only look at the keywords for so long before they all blend in together. So it is research, it is time. And when I audit my website, I'm looking at inside WordPress, right? If you're using an SEO tool, look at all of your focus keywords you've assigned. Look at your tags and your categories and your blog posts and your products. If you've got custom post types, look at your custom post types. Look to see everywhere in your website that you could have content that could be or currently is keyword focused. Then go look at the live site and start scanning your website. See what you talk about, right? You may not have a page dedicated to a given keyword, but you probably have it somewhere in your text. It could be in your proposals that you give out to potential clients. It could be in PowerPoint presentations. Keywords can be in emails that you receive in from prospects, things that people are asking you for. You could ask your brother or your sister or your cousin at Christmas or a Hanukkah party, what is it that you would look for if you needed a new website or whatever it is the service that you sell. Ask general people what they would use. You're going to be surprised at the words that they give you back. It's not what you think it would be. An example of this is I had on our website at one point in time that we created child themes for the Genesis framework, right? Real people outside of WordPress don't know what child themes are. And I had one of my clients tell me that to her a child theme was a toddler or grade school. She said, I don't have a school, so why do I need a child theme? That was a reminder to me, even though I've been doing this for a decade, it was a reminder that I need to step outside myself and my own head, and I need to look at what the real world uses when they're searching for our products and services. That seed list is vital to you because it creates the world of opportunities where you can move forward with your website and with your optimization. I take all of my seed lists and then I plug them into Google's Keyword Planner tool for AdWords, and I get back the search volumes that Google's showing, on an average month-to-month basis, so that I can start using some decisions factors with it. I look at the search volumes and I compare that to what people are paying for pay-per-click and the competition. And even though that's pay-per-click and it's not a direct correlation to SEO, it does kind of give me some idea of what might be a better keyword over another. And for example, if people are using or people are bidding very high, $25 for a very low volume keyword, that tells me that could be a very good converter. So I pay special attention to that. Other places you can find keywords is what does Google give you back when you do a search? Like when you start to type in something in the box, what does it start to give back as an autocomplete? Those are potential keywords. The results on the bottom of Google's search page will give you related keywords. Those are examples that you can use for your keyword list. Don't rely on Google to give you all of the keywords because they're not. You have to generate that list. You know your industry and your clients and your prospects better than Google, so create your own list and then use Google to get those search volumes. Once I've narrowed down that original list, and that list could be 100 or thousands depending on what the industry is, I start to assign ranking levels, so high, medium, low, or no relevance, and I start to whittle that list down to really what's important, right? What would be my target market? An example of that is when I started the business, I was using website design as our focus keyword, and then I realized that was silly. Really what I do WordPress, right? We create WordPress websites. What was more important for me is not the generic web design or website design or internet marketing. It was stuff related to WordPress because that's who's going to convert into a sale for us. And so I fine-tuned my list. And my list didn't need to be website design that has the highest volume possible. It needed to be something lower that was really relevant to what's going to convert in my site. Ask yourself when you're looking at that keyword list what's relevant. That helps you narrow down your list. And then once you have that narrow list of really what you want to rank on, Now becomes the point where you have to start mapping that to pieces and parts of your existing website or blog. Assign one piece of content to each keyword. And I'll be honest with you, when you have your keyword list, you're going to have a whole lot of blank spots because you're not going to have content assigned. But what that process will do for you is it will show you the lack of keyword strategy that you had before and the lack of focus, and it will get you into the mindset of having one keyword to one piece of content. I know in the current release of Yoast SEO plugin, he is allowing more than one keyword. I encourage you not to do that, and here's why. It takes a lot of education and a lot of experience to be able to try to optimize a piece of content for more than one keyword. I'm thrilled that Yoast is offering that as an option in the plugin, but for most people who are novices at SEO, it's too much. It's going to clutter the water. If you just stay focused on one phrase to a piece of content, you're going to have much more success rates because it will keep you focused. Once you're very knowledgeable in SEO, and if you want to have 2 or more or 5 keywords focused on a page, that's great. But don't do that to start because it will become too challenging for you. Once I have a list of keywords tied to a specific piece of content, then I allow myself to start to write content or optimize my existing content. When people are doing websites and blogs and they're creating, even if it's a redesign or a brand new launch, they tend to skip to number 3 and they forget 1 and 2. And that's a huge issue because when you just start writing content, you don't have focus. And while I think that there's a lot of great SEO tools on the market today, they jump right into number 3 and they don't get you focused on 1 and 2. And that is a disservice to the community and to the website owners because they're lacking that ability to get them structured. So number 3, when you write your content, don't forget that it has to be mapped back to your keywords. When you write your content, notice I'm telling you to write content based on the keywords, but stay very focused on the user experience. Write your content for the user, don't write it for the search engines. After you write that blog post, after you write that service page, come back and do number 4. Now start optimizing it. Edit it. But don't do that from the start because then you get too caught up with what you need for SEO and you're going to not have a cohesive and a coherent piece of content that's going to really resonate with your reader. When you do get to number 4, consider what's the most important elements of the page. It's the URL to make sure it's search engine friendly. It's real words. It represents your focus keyword. Your H1 header and your subheaders, the text of the paragraph and the call to actions and the links you're going to have in. Those are all important elements of the content that need to have your focus keyword applied. Your meta title and your description, that little box that shows up in the search engines, it's important both for ranking because the search engines use that to figure out what your content's about, but it's also important to the user because, again, like I said at the beginning of this webinar, it's your first opportunity to sell to people. They're going to see that meta title and description before they ever decide to even click into your website and to see what that piece of content's about. Make sure that is selling them. Don't make it cheesy, but I joke ABC, always be closing. Use that meta title and description and think ABC the next time you write. You want it to always be closing. Make sure that you were slightly selling with that text and using your keyword in it so you can encourage people to click through. Number 5 is something that I forget myself and I catch myself and I have to go back and fix it. Once you are done with writing your content and you're published, you need to start building links into it. This isn't the link juice I was talking about before. The link juice I was talking about before is using the external sources to try to manipulate Google's ranking. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if I have a dedicated piece of content on my website, make sure that you're linking into it so that people can get to it, right? Link from your footer or your menu or other content within the text. Link over to that so both you help the user find that content, but you're also giving signals to the search engines that that piece of content is really important. What people generally do is they make sure that their most linked to content in their website is their contact page or their about page, and most of the time those don't have any SEO value. They forget their most important pages. Those should have inbound links to them, and they should be linked to often, and that's something that you should build over time. Number 6 is another critical one. I have done testing on my own theme store, to see if I share something a lot on social, or it gets a lot of shares on social, or if it's completely ignored, and how I rank. And what do you think the results are? If I forget to share something on social media, or that piece of content is ignored on social media, it is ignored by the search engines. It will rank. Excuse me, it will not rank. Anyone who tells you that social media does not influence SEO is crazy. In today's world, it matters, and it matters a lot. And it's not just that you share it once. It's the fact that you have it shared on Facebook, it's liked, it's commented on, it's on Google+, it's on LinkedIn. People, I mean, the search engines care not only that it's shared on Twitter, but who shared it on Twitter. How many times was it shared on Twitter? And how many times was it retweeted? Those are the votes that you can safely achieve and build up to replace that old-fashioned link juice. So, get rid of the link juice, the idea of that off of your site, and focus on the social media. And the one way to really achieve this with social media is to be part of the community. If you are not part of the community and you're out there, and particularly if you're a WordPress developer and you're trying to rank your content and you don't have any interaction with the other members of the WordPress community on social media, it's going to be hard for you to do that. But what I can tell you is that our community is very loving and they're very open. And if you communicate and you share with other people, they will share back. And I don't just mean your content. I mean they will give of themselves to you. So don't be afraid to share with us. Get out there. If you've written a really good blog post, share it and let us find it so we can help share your content as well. Number 7, build offsite authority. And by that, I mean it's any external process. It's going to a conference. It's, getting your brand name out there, and it's PR. It's old school PR that you would normally forget, but it really does make a difference because it does get mentions of your URL and it does get your name out there, and the search engines see that, right? Even if no one's linked over to your website, it's seeing those references to your URL, and that does influence search engines. Number 8, I forget to do this one too. It's come back and check your ranking process, right? Where did that post go? If I had keyword WordPress themes and I had picked a piece of content and I wrote content for it and I shared it on social media and it was already been optimized and I built my links, if you spent all of that time and effort, don't forget to come back and check your progress. I don't want you to sit and watch Google's page 1 to see and check it every day to see if you're there. Don't do that. What you can do is go into Google Search Console and go into those search analysis and pull some reports. You can download that. It will show you where you rank. And the reason I want you to do that is because I want you to figure out what ranks on your website and what you've done right. And if you can figure out what you've done right and you can reverse engineer that, that's how you can take those steps and apply it to your other content. That is how I taught myself SEO 10 years ago, and I still do that today. I did it with our theme store. My theme store is a success because I used SEO to drive it. And when I didn't do that at first, and we released 4 themes and I totally forgot about SEO, it was a big flop, right? But once I remembered to do what I know and I applied SEO, and I would check my ranking status and I would reverse engineer the themes that were ranking and I applied those to the other themes, it worked. And we were on page 1 for themes and we were selling a lot. It really does make a difference. And you can reverse engineer. You can look at what you've optimized and how many links are coming into that page and how many social shares you have for that piece of content, and you can see how many times or where you use the keyword and your meta descriptions and your meta titles, and then those ranking pages or posts do the same on the rest of your site. It's a great way to learn, and it's a great way to figure out what works for your website. And that's really 9 and 10 that I just talked about, and I cannot stress that process enough. And the reason they're important is because SEO evolves over time. The search engines get smarter, and they've changed a lot of what they've done in 2015, and they're going to change a lot of what they do in 2016. So you need to make sure that you are continuously looking at how you're ranking, from the report stand, not like I'm checking it every day, but look at that and learn from that and document it and continue to optimize because it will make a huge, huge impact. Okay, so the most common reason people fail is they forget to go and plan number 1 and 2, and they jump straight to number 3. I've been preaching this entire time, this entire hour, about keyword research and mapping and how important strategy is, and I'm going to continue to do that for the rest of the week. And it's why we have a day dedicated to it, because it is really, really important. And if that's not part of your process, I want you to make it part of your process. I want you to take that screenshot that I just had and that flow, and I want, as you get off this call, if you could just spend 10 minutes and look at the areas where you're lacking and document those and try to make a plan to fix those moving forward, even if it's just your next piece of content that you write. I think that you're going to start to see some success and you'll see some positive outcomes. Okay, so my 3 keys to success, I am going to remind you of this every single day this week. It's research and planning. Don't start writing content until you've researched potential keywords and you have a plan. And it's not just a singular plan, it's a holistic plan of your website. The next group is to create and optimize that content and make sure that that content closely ties to your target market and the people that you're trying to reach, right? Don't just pick a keyword because it has 200,000 searches. That's not the right approach. Find the best keyword for your target demographic and who will really convert into what you want them to do. And then strengthen your process. Make sure that as you work on SEO, you continue to come back and look at reports like Google Analytics and the Search Console, which used to be called Webmaster Tools, and see what's working and continue to optimize the rest of your site for that. Okay, so each day I'm going to try to give you some booster knowledge. Number 1 is the Search Engine Optimization Starter Guide from Google. They published this years ago, and then a couple of years ago they created a new version of it. The link is here. Again, you're going to have the slides given to you, so you'll have that link. If you do nothing else after this, print this out. Go to that link and make sure that you've printed out that document and you've read through it. Google's really, really good at trying to explain to you what's important, and a lot of people don't even know that tool is out there. If you don't have something to remind you to go look at Google's Webmaster Tool or the Webmaster blog in Bing, read their blog posts. Go back and look and see what they've published, because again, they want you to be successful, and they're trying to give you some good information to help you be a success. Take the opportunity to read those blog posts and learn from them. That's how I did it. And I built a business around this SEO, and really, these are the tools that I used. I read the optimization guide. I've been following the Webmaster Tools for Bing and Google, and they do provide education, and they will tell you when something's not going to be allowed, so you can stop with that practice and protect yourself. Okay, so I've spieled for 45 minutes, and I thank you all so much for listening and for joining us today. We have 15 minutes left, and I wanted to make sure that I had that time because I'm sure people have questions, and Cory's team has been assembling them. So Cory, I'm going to kind of turn it back over to you and your team now so that we can kind of get some questions from the chat and make sure that we get some answers out to the folks.
Absolutely. So, hey, post your questions specifically based on the presentation today in the chat room now that you have. I'm going to have to filter those out. We have about 12 minutes for questions. But before we do that, I wanted you to know I posted links, one to Rebecca, where you can follow Rebecca on Twitter, and the second is where you can find the next 3 webinars that she's doing this week. So this is the first of 4, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time every day through Thursday this week. So you won't want to miss those. If you're not at iThemeschat.com, by the way, you don't know what chat I'm talking about, we are not using the GoToWebinar control panel. So, okay, let me come back here and ask a couple of questions. Okay, so Oliver asked, just how regular do we need to be when it comes to negatively affecting the ranking position? Is there maybe an interval, Rebecca, where when you say check in on your rankings and stuff like that, that you might want to do any kind of guidance on that kind of, ranking, the negative and positives?
Yeah, I would. So I would have a plan to review your website because you can't review it every day, and people have real lives, right? This is secondary to whatever else that you're doing. I typically go in every 2 to 3 months and review ranking and see if I've fallen or if I've gone up, and I try to learn from that and, like I said, reverse engineer it. And then I also, which another question people always ask is, how often should you look at keyword research and those volumes and site mapping? I try to do that every 6 months, and I encourage clients to do it every 6 months. And it will depend on your industry, because if you have a very fast-moving technology-based industry, you might need to do it more than every 6 months. If you have a very traditional industry that things don't change, terminology is not going to shift very much, you could maybe do it once a year. But definitely keyword research, if you can, every 6 months, and then like a site check-in every 2 to 3 months.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so there's a question from Jessica, and I think this kind of underscores some definitions from you. So she says, are link backs harmful like link juice? So I know this specifically came up between you and I's conversation about iThemes.com and how we have historically put our footer links in our themes and things like that. But could you talk maybe for a moment about link backs? And I know the dreaded phrase link juice is something you don't like, but maybe give us a little bit of a nuance about link backs and link juice.
Yeah, so Cory, iThemes makes themes. We make our own stock themes, and this is a good example. When we first started with the theme store, you would have found the link back to our store or our theme in the footer of the stock theme that you purchased. You had always had the right to take it off, but the link existed there, and we did that on some client custom design sites as well. Well, Google had said at one point, or they hinted that wasn't going to be acceptable anymore, so I started pulling them out, right? And I pulled them out from the themes, and then, I think 9 months passed, and then they officially came out, and I don't even remember where I saw it at, but they said that that's not acceptable anymore. So it really is going to depend on the nature of the link, right? And another example is years ago when I worked in the land of ERP, we used to do press releases all the time, and those press releases always would have links back with keyword-rich phrases to those destination pages. Well, Google came out this year and said that that's not acceptable yet, anymore either. So those are the kind of things that you need to be aware of, and the best way to know what is allowed or what isn't allowed is to read the Google Webmaster Blog and the Bing Webmaster Blog, because they're going to give you insight on what's acceptable and what's not. And if a policy's changed, they use that as their outreach to you to tell you and communicate that with you, so you know exactly what's good and what's bad. But inbound links are good, right? Just don't go chase them. They're going to naturally occur. If you produce good content, if you have a good product, and if you're out there in the community and out in social media, people are going to link into you. I mean, the Little League links into me because I sponsor them. Those are all good things. Keep those coming.
Yeah, I hear natural and organic and genuine type links are good. The ones where you force feed it, you kind of put into the category of link juice. When somebody uses that kind of term.
Yep.
Okay, so here's a good question, because it kind of gets to a broader question and by the way, Rebecca's going to be sharing all week, so you're going to have time for this, but with over 2,000 people registered, we're not going to get to every question. So we appreciate you so much, Rebecca, being able to kind of field some of these off-the-cuff questions. So Ann asks, is there a risk of overusing a certain keyword in the content?
Yes. Yes, there definitely is, right? That's keyword stuffing. Today that is a great question, because the search engines today, and they've publicly stated this, they would rather you have less usage of the keyword and more natural variations of the keyword within your content, right? So instead of saying WordPress themes, WordPress themes, WordPress themes 50 times in a blog post, don't do that, because they wouldn't naturally write it that way, right? Sometimes we would say WordPress themes, WordPress premium themes, WordPress templates. The important thing is that the content has a keyword focus, and that the content is about that given keyword, but do it naturally, right? There's no magical number, and it changes, and I think Yoast in his latest plugin release just changed the percentage he used for frequency, right, for the usage. So there is no magical number, but use it naturally, and if it reads naturally to you when you're reading it like a user, then you're probably safe. If it doesn't, if it's challenging you to read and you're stumbling over that keyword, then you've used it too much and you need to pull it out.
Okay. Kenneth asks, where does the importance of responsive web design rank with respect to other key variables? I know Google went through the whole mobile part of the ranking equation, but any kind of comments about the mobile responsive experience?
So the answer to that is going to vary based on the device someone's searching on. If you are on mobile, if you're on a mobile device and you're searching for something, you know, the having a mobile responsive website is extremely important. It's less important on desktop, but it is still important. And think of it this way. So I come back to what's good for the user. Google announced this year that mobile searches are more prevalent than desktop searches. So if you're Google and you know mobile search is more common than desktop, how important do you think a mobile responsive website is going to be today and in the future? It's going to be extremely important because that's the nature of which people search. A desktop website that is not mobile responsive is very challenging to read on a mobile phone. And the search engines are going to get more and more stringent on what they show in those types of results, and it will cascade over to the desktop as well. So if you do not have a mobile responsive website, get yourself one. It is going to become more and more important, and you'll have more and more negative results by not having it as time passes.
Great. So just a couple more questions. We only have about 4 more minutes, and I want to remind everybody that we're going to be doing these 1 p.m. every day for the next 3 days. You can see the link to the next agenda items. There's a lot of questions that we're going to be that Rebecca's going to be addressing in the next webinar and the following webinars that you want to come back around for. But one, Rebecca, that's been asked, and I'm just kind of curious of your answer, is that's been asked like 3 times, is about CDN services like Cloudflare and their effect on SEO. Any thoughts on that?
So we use the CDN. We host with WP Engine, and we use their CDN. Before we were hosting with WP Engine, we had Max CDN, and we had that in place because it affects performance, and performance affects SEO. So it definitely is a factor, absolutely. Is it more important than keyword research? No, but it is definitely something that you can do, and you can increase your ranking because you're improving the user experience. You're making your website faster, and you're improving the user experience because people can get to your content in a more efficient manner, and that does affect SEO.
Great. So all about performance, and you know what I saw in Rebecca's slides, everyone, in the very beginning was she wasn't just trying to give you tactics. She was saying understand how the whole process works, and I love that foundational approach to this because you can see it in everything that Rebecca does. And by the way, as she's mentioned several times, or you know, as examples of her experience, she's done work for some really big organizations and went head to head with some other organizations. So I appreciate your time. Okay, some people just asked about, you know, like if they're an agency website, about, I think there's some you know, differentiation about this, but you know, you do a custom website and you put a link to your agency in the footer. That's not necessarily what you're going at as far as link bait and all that kind of stuff, right?
Well, we don't do that anymore. What we do is we just say website by Web Savvy Marketing or something like that. There is no link.
Okay.
And here's why. As soon as the search engine said that was not a desired practice, I pulled it out. And because if they say it softly, it's not desired, they're going to say it more strongly moving forward.
Yep. Okay,
so pull it out. If you're doing it, just pull it. Just use a text reference.
Plus, if someone loves the website and they see it's done by Web Savvy Marketing, what are they going to do? They're going to copy those 3 words, go over to Google, search for you, and find you, right?
Exactly. Yep.
I think that's a very important note for a lot of our community who are freelancers or have small agencies. That, you know, that's a very interesting note. And by the way, that's worth the entire time today. If you're one of those freelancers or agency notes, is that you can still get credit and get that marketing power from a great website design that you deliver to a client. It just won't look exactly like it might have done if they clicked the link and saw, you know, Web Savvy Marketing and hit contact. So this has been a great webinar, Rebecca, and I'm looking forward to the next ones because I'm filling in some of the gaps that I didn't even. I'm still learning. I'm still your student here. So I'm going to paste Rebecca's Twitter and the links to the topics for the next 3 sessions here in the chat room. We'll be emailing you when the slides and the recordings are available. So many of you have asked those questions We'll send you notes about that as soon as they're available. So you'll get an email if you've been on the webinar here shortly. But anyway, be ready for tomorrow's topic, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you've registered for this link, for this webinar, you're a part of all those, so you're going to get email reminders about those webinars. But if you would, please tweet out to Rebecca today saying thank you for an awesome SEO webinar today, and that for those who haven't been at the webinar, need to get here for the next 3 days, because I'm telling you, you're going to make money from these webinars. And so, Rebecca, thank you so much for sharing today, and we look forward to the next couple of days.
My pleasure. Thanks, everybody.